No one can take our power, even if they crucify us, put us in prison, or say all sorts of terrible shit about us. This material is not intended for children.
Okay.
I will praise your holy name.
Hi, my name is Trav, and I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying in this video. In fact, I'm encouraging you to question all that you've been told. What can we truly know? And what do we mean when we say that we believe something?
Struggling to find a way.
Hello, my friends. I'm gonna attempt something right now. Just appearing before you as I am. And just sharing my music with my kids. And I think it's that innocence and that love and that play that I'm discovering today. We learn to sing blues. Labor and the expression of worth. I've become super curious about the human condition and the story of our evolving consciousness. I'm a fan of science, mysticism, and all that's in between those sometimes seemingly contrary viewpoints. If you are challenged or disturbed by something I say, I invite you to challenge that idea in the comments section. Just who do I think I am? And who do you think you are? And who are we together? What is our primary function? Labor and the expression of worth.
Was God born to wrestle with science in an age wrought with anger and fear?
Legend has it that 500 years before Jesus was born, this man was riding this ox trying to get the hell out of town when he was stopped by a guard who recognized him as Lao Tzu, and the guard insisted that he write down the Tao Te Ching. Most importantly to me about the Tao is that if you think you can name it or describe it, then that's not really the Tao at all. It's like the name that's beyond all names, the unnameable, the non-objectifiable, the formless, the non-binary, that which holds yet transcends reason. It was in the Tao where I first started to kind of get the cosmic joke. It's like, yeah, we can't name it, but we're going to write about it and talk about it. And we're going to keep writing about it and talking about it because that's what we do as symbolic language creatures. Here we go. Around the same time, there was a guy named Siddhartha Gautama who was born into a life of privilege. Legend has it that he was protected from seeing any sign of death, sickness, and suffering, but he escaped the confines of his protected life. He went out there and discovered suffering, and then he knew that he must find a solution to the suffering of humankind. Now, back in the West, in Greece, around the same time the Buddha and Lao Tzu, we have this line of three men we call philosophers: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates teaches us how to ask questions, how to make inquiries, and he asks such powerful questions that at some point he was accused by the people of his world and he was put to death. He was given a choice: exile or drink the hemlock. Now, we know about Socrates because of his student, Plato, who wrote all about him and his questioning. Plato inspires in us a love of the formless, the divine, the Tao, perhaps, the way. Plato's student, Aristotle, however, began classifying and organizing. It might be helpful to think of Plato as the mystic and Aristotle as the scientist. So I think it's cool to imagine all of these guys kind of living around the same time. Lao Tzu Siddhartha Gautama, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all about 500 years before Jesus. 500 years after all those guys, this subversive parable teller is born, and he shows up and he says, "I am the Son of God, and I'm here to tell you that you are also the Son of God. I wish you could know your oneness with the Father as I know my oneness with the Father." He was such a threat to church and state, much like Socrates, that his people put him to death. Love him or hate him, there was something so profound about this one that we have called Jesus that somehow our entire calendar got arranged around this guy. The reason his message was so threatening to both church and state is because he was empowering us. He was saying true authority rises from within you, from within us. He was showing us how to be our own authority. He was trying to remind us of our own divine nature. And that is exactly what false power structures cannot have, is people becoming their own authority. Some of his closest followers wrote the Gospels, and then there was a guy named Paul, the Apostle Paul, who had an experience kind of separate from that, where he just claimed to have had a personal revelation of Jesus in his own life, and he wrote the Pauline epistles. And still, after all that, we've broken into different schisms, and we're arguing about what this guy was trying to tell us. His message was appropriated by empire and used as a justification for terrible and heinous crimes against humanity. Crusades, inquisitions, witch hunts, genocide, slavery, the colonization of the globe. Do you remember how I said that the Tao was kind of my introduction for the cosmic joke? Well, it shows up again here in the fact that we call this guy Jesus, and no one ever called him Jesus, so we couldn't even really get the name right. You see, we couldn't get the name of the way or the Tao right. When we tried to name it, when we tried to own it, when we appropriate the way for our own purpose, it goes really bad. We can't do it. It's non-objectifiable. We can't control it, and that's what we're trying to learn. The Christ is the one who transcends the personal. Jesus was the one who showed us how to get over ourselves. That's what forgiveness is. No one can take our power, even if they crucify us, put us in prison, or say all sorts of terrible shit about us. And that is what you won't hear in organized religion and churches, because the churches that we see generally are serving what we might call empire Christianity. And the power structures that be do not want you to hear that message. About 400 years after Jesus, we have St. Augustine, who you might think of being responsible for inspiring a Platonic Christianity, a Christianity inspired by Plato the mystic. About 800 years after St. Augustine, there's Thomas Aquinas, who is responsible for what we might call Aristotelian Christianity. Remember, Aristotle is the scientist, the empiricist, the classifier, the organizer. Darwin loved Aristotle. I love Darwin. Seriously, when I read Darwin, I feel like I'm getting a letter from a friend. There's just a friendliness and a warmth in his voice to me. Darwin was telling us that we all emerged from the same tree of life. His message was one of oneness in his acknowledgement of the evolution of us, the evolution of the great consciousness, the evolution of life here in this universe. Darwin's tree of life evolution message was misappropriated by a still developing rational mind in our species. Humans liked to imagine themselves as static. It was offensive to us to imagine that we arose from anywhere. We had placed ourselves at the center of our own universe, and it was offensive for us to think any other way. anthropocentrism, human self-centeredness. We are the species which imagined ourselves to be somehow separate from nature and separate from God. In about 1440, this guy, Gutenberg, he invented the printing press, the printed word. This is huge for us. This is Martin Luther. He showed us how to start standing up against empire Christianity. He saw through the bullshit schemes. He saw how the church was manipulating people through guilt to give them money by pretending to be an authority about God, which it was not. Here is Nicholas Copernicus. The Copernican revolution. The Earth is not the center of the universe. We are part of a bigger story. But be careful, because institutionalized religion will still burn you at the stake.
We were held by the mother of the mountain as we made our way back down, with the root underfoot and the river down below, and the clouds making thundering sounds, 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 with the root underfoot and the river down below, and the clouds making thundering sounds.